You're listening to DadBods, DadBoss, the podcast where we tackle ins and outs of business
and tech, streamline your work-life balance, and navigate the journey of being a dad in today's world.
I'm Shane.
I'm Q. And Eric is here too.
And every week we bring you tips, tricks, and healthy dose of dad wisdom.
Ready to boss your business and your life. Let's dive in.
Lucky you didn't hear what was said just then, because Shane just lost his marbles because, he's got dodgy internet. And as you know, in today's world, the internet makes the world go round. So if you're listening to this, it means you've got great internet. So welcome to DadBods, DadBoss, the podcast, the show where fatherhood meets business and everything else in between. Guys, I'm Q. Guys, and joining me today are my co-hosts. Down my bottom there, back on his laptop, not his phone, is Mr. High Performance Father himself, Eric. How are you, my man?
Hang on. That sounds like in a Star Wars.
Mate, no one's got good internet today.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Shane is cutting out. I'm good, Mr. Nguyen. We have to cut this at the end. Yeah. So that sounds all right. But I'm great. I'm great as always. Had an awesome event on the weekend. High Performance Father. We had a workshop and the dinner and the walk through the city and the awesome breakfast. Had like 40 or 50 of our guys coming. It was great energy. Always good to connect in person. Like you said, it's this online world we are living in, but like it's personal touch and seeing people in the flesh. That's just a different level. But that was great. So still pumped from that, and going to Melbourne this week and having another catch up in Melbourne Saturday, Sunday this week. It's a bit of traveling this month. It's good.
Oh, mate, might have to change your name from High Performance Father to Mr. High Roller. So good to hear, my man. And then, hey, we've got him back. We have Mr. European Bee Eater. How are you, buddy?
It's not even a bird. What are you making names up now? You're just like, oh, hey, ChatGPT, make up some names for some birds. That would be cool.
Make them viral and headline grabbing.
Exactly. What's all going all right, mate? We're going all right. Ticking along. Pretty busy. Busy last week, busy this week. Not too bad next week. So looking forward to a bit of a slower week next week. So yeah, just cruising along, tackling things in life as we all do.
Yeah, sweet. And mate, we've in the last week we've had a couple of sick kids. Leo's asthma's flared up because of this change in weather, and then because they're back at school, bugs get around, and Kai just had like some sort of bug that made him want to go to the toilet at all random times. So lucky they're all better now, and being with them home, just had a bit more time to chill out with them, catch up on the news. And I don't know if you guys out there have been watching the news, but there was a big meeting between Donald Trump, Mr. President of the United States, and I can't even pronounce his name right, so I hope I say it right, is the Volodymyr Zelensky. He's the current president of the Ukraine. And thanks, Shane. I know you got my back.
Did better than I would have, mate.
But look, guys, we're not here to talk politics. There was a big kind of like online discussion around their body language and how they communicated, and essentially their leadership styles, right? And which is really important for us as fathers and business owners in today's world. And we also need to think about how do leadership styles influence our roles at home and in the boardroom. So that's going to be the premise of today's conversation. So stick around, because we're going to challenge you in many different ways around being a man and a dad and a business owner in today's world. So let's kick things off by discussing the different leadership styles, like those that were exhibited in that televised meeting that rarely happens. So the big things that they were talking about was, one person came from an authoritative kind of like assertive lens, and the other one was trying to be more collaborative and a bit more, vulnerable, and not getting into the politics behind of the underlying, intent and all that kind of stuff. But, Eric, my man, for yourself, I think it's fair to say that, adopting a collaborative leadership style is more beneficial both at home in the workplace. Can you just share a bit more on how especially this is beneficial at home with our personal and family relationships?
Yeah. So it's something actually about the Chief. Funny enough that I got a Chief t-shirt on, which is actually a food company. They're making awesome protein bars and beef jerky. But we have this concept of being the chief, where you're showing up and you are both, right? And that's a good collaborator is both. On the one side, assertive, a bit dominant, taking leadership, but on the other hand, also holding space, right? And bringing everybody in and getting all of the opinions in and different viewpoints, and then based on that, making the best decision. So I think it's actually both. Maybe it's somewhere in between, actually. So I don't think it's the goal to be very or authoritarian. I think it's the right word. Like and just saying that's what we do, or on the other hand also, I don't mind at all, whatever. It's this healthy balance in between, and being the chief at home, being strong, but also being okay to listen to others. And I think that's super important in a relationship with the family, but also in business. And I guess there's always context, right? There's always context. There may be sometimes situations where if the kids are in danger, we're maybe not saying, hey, let's talk about it. No, we have to be, let's go this way. But then, if it's something that is not super urgent, then it's okay to be more collaborative and hear everybody's opinion. But then I still think as the man of the house, and as the leader, we can assume the man or the father, it's the leader of the family. There's obviously a bit of a tendency to be a bit more the one who's calling the shots. So I think that's the balance where maybe back in the days it was too much like that, and now a lot of men struggle with being too much on the other side, where we are scared to speaking up, because then we are the bad men. We are the, what's the term? Misogyny.
Misogyny. Yeah, I think the key word that you're looking for there is when you speak out, there's a sex ban, right?
Something, because you spoke your mind, but yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, mate. No, I really appreciate, and I love that. And mate, just future reference, mate. Only mention people who actually sponsoring us, right? No free shout outs. Okay. But mate, I love how, like, it is that combination of balance. And you mentioned the past, how and we've all lived it, right? How perhaps our male role model figures back then were more assertive, authoritative, but we understand that there is a balance. And so, hey Shane, like from your experiences as well, and more so seeing as well, with the clientele base that you work with in this day and age, what would you say are some of those key traits that make good leaders, or great leaders, that you've either experienced firsthand or like seen from afar? And then also, just to elaborate on that, like, can you perhaps explain how some of those traits may influence the decision making that we have as well as fathers, as dads?
Of course. First of all, I'm not sponsored by Chief Food, who make amazing protein bars and beef jerky, but apparently they're amazing. And if you want an affiliate, I know a guy. I'll put you in touch with Mr. Sommerfeld.
Love it.
No, I've forgotten the question. No, the traits that make a good leadership. I always look at through the lens of the person, behavioral flexibility. The person with the most behavioral flexibility always gets the desired outcome. So when it comes to leadership is... well, there's a couple of things. Being flexible in how you approach leadership to each individual person on the team, and we're talking team in the business, but the team in the family as well. So we could have 3 kids, and they could all be different communicators in different ways. So understanding how to communicate with them is going to be most important, which then it really comes down to understand their model of the world. If you understand their model of the world and the way that they like to communicate, the way they like to be spoken to, the way they like to speak, and you can match and mirror that, then you're onto a winner, and that's going to make a massive impact. And classic thing is, in the workplace, is every employee is going to have a different behavior, habit, and trait or way of being. And if you can identify what really motivates them, what drives them, what kind of accountability works for them, is it the soft, hey, you can do this, or come on, mate, you can do better than that, then you can do all of that. Then you're just going to get so much more productivity out of the team and the community, in the workplace. And then the same, you're just going to have a deeper relationship with the wife, the husband, the kids, whatever it is, by understanding how do they best respond to the way that you speak to them. And I just want to, I guess one thing is really important, is it probably relates a little bit to the interview we were talking about, is the way we communicate. Like, and this is, you guys all know this, but we in NLP we talk about the different levels of communication. Like when something is said, only 7% of what is interpreted comes from the actual words, and then 38% comes from the tonality, but then 55% comes from the physiology. And we talked about the physiology and that interview and everything. So the way that we present ourselves is how language is heard, regardless of the words. And I always use this example. Like, I used to be a farmer, I used to have working dogs, and they knew just by the tonality and the physiology that I had when I was out on the motorbike, whether I was pissed off or whether I wasn't. And I could be saying something like, "Oh, get up here, please," in a calm voice, and they were good. Or I could be going, "Get up here, please," and they knew I was pissed off, and they would be quivering or hiding in the corner. So it's the tonality and the physiology is most important when it comes to any communication, especially in leadership, because if they feel like they're being dictated to because you've got this overbearing type physiology, then they're going to shut down and try and hide, or be a little bit standoffish or be scared. Whereas if you can come in with a more of a relaxed energy and like a welcoming energy or welcoming physiology, they're going to feel like they're part of the team and feel like that they they want to really do more and be better in the team as well.
Yeah, mate, that 100% communication plays a key role. And what is this show without a reference to Stephen Covey? That chapter, right? What is it, Eric? Chapter 5. Listen to what's being heard or whatever it is. So you got to really listen for the underlying tone and meaning. But
hashtag sponsorship.
Hashtag come on, Stephen Covey. But as you were elaborating, sharing, your insights there, Shane, the thing that popped in my mind was something I heard many moons ago, and I'm sure you guys have heard this as well. It's don't treat people how you want to be treated. Treat people how they want to be treated, because they have their own ways of what they want to be treated, or how they want to be spoken to, and how they want to be received. And so by forcing them to receive communication or whatever it is your way, it's kind of like disrespecting them, and you lose that rapport. So treat people how they want to be treated, and that is a great starting point to ensure that you're able to influence and understand them as well. So next up, guys, let's talk about conflict resolution, because there's bloody conflict everywhere. Okay, so there's worlds, like there's wars happening right now, but there's also like conflict at home and at work. So how we handle these situations can define us as men and as leaders. So hey, Shane, from your experience, my man, what are some strategies we can implement to resolve conflicts effectively at home?
Yeah, well, it comes again to the understand their model of the world, which really in this conversation around conflict is like, what is the desired outcome they have, but for what purpose do they want that outcome? Like, is there a fear? Is there some sort of anxiety that they're trying to avoid by having something done their way? So really want what their desired outcome is, but for what purpose? What purpose do you want that outcome? And how is that playing out? Like, why is having this behavior going to help you get that outcome? And what's that outcome going to give you on a deeper level? Not just, some surface level answer. It's like, what's the deeper level thing that you're trying to achieve by having that thing done your way as such? So yeah, really just understanding the model of the world is the most important part.
Yeah, and like an iceberg, right, Shane? Once you understand the world, like it's not just for an iceberg, 90% of the iceberg is underneath the water. And so we don't want just to look at the surface. We want to actually go deeper and find out what it is they actually want. And so, in NLP terms, it's called chunking down, right? But essentially it's just not enough a word for just digging deeper, finding the core thing that they actually want. Because, like, for example, your kids, right? Like if they want to play video games, what am I trying to say? It's like if they're having a hissy fit around not being able to play video games, the video game is not the problem. It's if you get down a bit deeper, it's probably because they're lonely, or not enough attention has been given to them. So we want to find that deeper level thing that resonates with the person we're speaking to. And so, Eric, my man, hey, you've got little Sophia, right? There's lots of lots of tantrums at that age as well, right? She's also learning how to be social at school care, daycare, right? How do you, or how do we teach our kids to handle conflict constructively?
Think again internally, right? So that's how we model by example, always back to the most important point, I think, how do we teach them is how we model them, so how do we respond to conflict in the relationship, conflict with them, conflict with other family members. I think that's really a big one, and being emotionally regulated, having this emotional stability, knowing our triggers, working on our triggers, right? And working on ourselves ultimately, so. And I guess for a toddler, I mean, the brain is still developing, so I guess that's a bit of a tricky one. I think it's all part of the development, as far as I understand, right? The brain, we know it's still under 25 or 30 years, it's still developing the brain itself, and especially for like a 3.5 or 4-year-old. I think the prefrontal cortex is not really activated that much, so everything is quite urgent, and so it's maybe not so much for the 4-year-old, but then still, I know when I have a good energy, when I'm stable. Same for Tiff when we're home and something comes up. If we regulate our energy and emotions, then the tantrums are shorter, and she comes back to, let's say, balance very quickly. So I think it's a big one. It's just for ourselves to master it, and then we can help others with that.
Yeah, yeah, and mate, and to just elaborate on what you've shared there, mate, is part of being able to, our stability and our regulation comes to being able to regulate our emotions, right? And so, if you're able to name that emotion or name the thing that you're going through, and as you said there, probably pinpoint some triggers that make you feel a particular way. The sooner you can name it, the sooner you can own it, the sooner you can move past it, right? Because, but also letting our kids know it's okay to feel emotions as well, right? And then once they've been able to tame it, they can handle the conflict that is like that they're involved in. So mate, 100% be stable, and I love how you guys are just saying it all comes with us, right? Because the whole world, there's stuff happening, right? And a lot of people just blame externally, but it all starts from within. So if we shift gears a little bit right now, okay, vulnerability is a word that kind of like challenges a lot of men out there. Yeah. And so in this day and age, though, it's vulnerability is starting to become more kind of like discussed, and added to masculinity as well. So continuing with you, Eric, how does being vulnerable impact our roles as fathers and business owners?
That's the interesting one. So I think it's important to a certain extent, right? And again, our older generation was maybe not vulnerable at all, was just like hard work and not showing any emotions, right? So, which is still, I think there is a place for that. And I think it's also a difference between raising a boy or raising a girl. I would also make the point, So maybe if we raise a boy, maybe we want him to be a bit more resilient, Obviously, still want to be able to show emotions or to talk about things, not just all suck it up and, don't show any emotions. No, not at all. But then again, it comes back to ourselves, right? How can we be our authentic self? That's really being authentic and being able to communicate properly how we feel, what's happening, what we want, our desires, conflict resolutions, these things we touched on before. I think that's the most important. I think kids are automatically more authentic anyways. It's more like something that is changing when we're getting older, when we then conform to society or the people that raise us, or culture. But kids, so authentic. I think we are all born authentic, isn't it? And then we kind of lose it, and then we have to learn it again to be authentic, to be our true self, right? And that's the journey we are on, and most of our clients as well. So yeah, so how can I be a bit more like a child again? Being authentic, being curious, curiosity is an important word there. Being curious about yourself, about others, about the world, questioning our beliefs, and how we look at things.
Yeah, 100%. And I love how, sometimes we have many layers up, right? That mask our true self. And we know that authenticity always wins, and part of being able to be authentic is that we have to be vulnerable enough to share that space of it, that true mask of ours, right? The true face of ours. So, and Shane, like, how, like, what am I trying to say here? Like, how can embracing vulnerability improve trust within our families and our workplaces, and the people that we work with? Oh,
Yeah, look, well, vulnerability is just being the truest version of yourself. So then all it's going to do is it's going to attract more people that like yourself, but it's going to show people who you really are. And then they won't be taken by surprise by anything or by any behaviors or habits or anything like that. Because when you're being your true self, they know exactly who you are. So then they will communicate. You're giving them the opportunity to understand your model of the world. So then they can communicate more clearly with you and in a way with you as well. And so even as a leader, it's really important to be vulnerable as well. So that people know that you're human and you do face different things as well in life, but you know how to work through that. And then they will communicate with you in a way that because they'll respect you more, they know you more, and then they'll look up to you even more as well. So really important to be able to adopt that and to be that as well, because I always look at as vulnerability as a weakness we perceive we cannot protect.
mm.
And the only reason we perceive we cannot protect it is because we were vulnerable in the past, and now we just perceive that someone else is going to take advantage of it. What we're going to recognize is, am I just being vulnerable in the right room or in the right space, in order to know that people aren't going to take advantage of me? They're going to support me.
Yeah, mate. And what I love, I never really thought about it until you shared it just then, is that when we are vulnerable and when we're authentic ourselves, we're allowing us to see our model of the world, right? So that they can connect with us and share with us and, treat us how we would like to be treated. So that's really powerful there. Really cool. And then, so Eric, my man, like, we'll keep going because, like, Shane's dropped off. He's got other better things to do. Oh no, he's come back. He's decided to rejoin us again. He doesn't actually have anything better to do. But let's keep going. And you're in with high performance fathers these days, and so really love to get your perception on, especially on this, like, this little bit that we're going to be talking about here is, and looking ahead at the future of fatherhood, right? Because I'm sure you've seen it, we've all seen it, like changing social norms and expectations around being a dad in today's world, right? From your perspective, Eric, of being in HPF, what skills or traits should modern dads, modern fathers prioritize to prepare their kids for the future?
I guess there's something about leadership, actually. There's something about leadership. There's something about awareness, right? And something about skills. Maybe that's the three things. Leadership, important, leading yourself, right? But also being able to lead others. And leadership at the end is all about influence, right? How can I influence somebody else to do what I want, right? And that's a skill, to be a great leader. And we spoke about the different leadership styles there, and getting or becoming really good at this. Something about leadership, something about skills, which is maybe surrounded by to leadership, but also in general, just actually having life skills, having something that you're good at, something that you master, So which I think it's a bit tough now, as everybody is studying all of that things. Back in the days, you would do a trade, you would actually you could do something, right? Really, really practical. Doesn't mean everybody has to do a trade, but it seems to me that a lot of people spend a lot of time at universities and being so academic, which we need, obviously, academic people, but I think it's really having skills that we can apply to the marketplace. And the third one that I forgot, what did I say? Leadership. I said, what was the third one that I had? You remember, Quinn?
I do not remember, man. Leadership, influencing others.
Authenticity. Did I say authenticity? Maybe.
You have not shared that one yet, mate.
No, but we spoke about it before, yeah? It will come to me later, but yeah, I think it's again, if we want to influence our children, our environment, we have to start with ourselves, right? And become the role model so we can actually show. It's actually all about showing. Maybe that's actually the biggest one of all, but just leadership again, through like showing, through demonstrating, for leading by example, right? So because everybody can talk and can read some really smart books, and have a big shelf behind them. None of us has a big shelf behind them. Actually, it's interesting. The other guys, big guys have, you can have all of the books, but then what are the results that you have in your life? And so interesting. Just recently, I noticed like a lot of Shane is gone, like a lot of the big influencers also in the men's space, they're getting divorced, right? How interesting is that? Now speaking about family and teaching other about fatherhood and being a man. And then, so I think that's a big one, getting your own house in order. And then doesn't mean you're perfect, and I mean, Tony Robbins is on his second marriage, So I'm not saying that you have to nail it straight away, but like really, really leading by example. It always comes back to that. Having awareness, it was awareness. Now it comes back to me. It was awareness, having the awareness of where we at, of where the world is, and then being able to protect and provide for our family in all different areas.
Yeah, definitely 100%, mate. And it's so important that it just shows that even the people who are teaching these things, right? They've probably still yet to master it themselves, because it is a skill that there is no finite end. It has to evolve and it has to change to suit the context and the world that we currently live in, because those skills that they had probably suited maybe 10, 15 years ago, but today's social norms and expectations have changed and evolved, right? And so it just means you constantly have to be adaptive, and as Shane said, have that behavioral flexibility to ensure that things can continue to progress forward. And so you just, Shane, you just missed like out on so much gold from our big friendly German here, right?
I do apologize. I had someone at the door. It was my delivery from the chief. I got my latest protein bars there. And
Oh, damn. You guys got a secret sponsorship. How come you guys left me out of this?
a super quick delivery, mate. You talk about it, Google picks it up and starts delivering it. It doesn't even ask.
Oh, love it, my man. And we're gonna have a final question with you, Shane. Before you hoe into your chief protein bars, right? Like, how do we, in today's world, ensure that as men, we're not just providers, but we're also active participants in our, not just our kids' lives, but our family, our family life.
Oh, I mean, we always talk about, kids spell love time, so time with them, and not just kids, like wives, husbands, whoever it is. Definitely the time, I think. And the other thing we always talk about is, showing by example. So showing that you can be a leader and showing how to be a good leader, so that they can see that, and whether that's in the business and you've got a good relationship for everyone in the business, and then the kids see that through when you come home, and then you talk to the kids at home and everything about leadership but lead as a parent as well. So I think that'd be the two things: is spending time with them and just showing them how to be a good leader. And it's just going to be, they'll absorb that, they'll see that, they'll show, you'll show them that, because however we treat our wives is how our kids are going to treat their wives. They're going to see that, or how they expect to be treated by their wife as well. So it's a great example. And daughters, and daughters too, to have their mum is treated is generally how a daughter is going to grow up thinking that's the way to be treated. So really just live the example, be the example, own your mistakes. There's no doubt about that. Like, I'm not saying that everybody's perfect all the time. If you make a mistake and you've got to make that apology, you've got to have that conversation with someone, then own it, because then it shows them it's okay to be wrong. Because I grew up having the belief that it's not okay to be right. It's not okay to be wrong, sorry, and I've got to be right all the time. And then the perfectionist is born, and then if they don't get it perfect, they start to fail and they feel like a failure. And you and I, we all know that the cycle just goes down and down and down from there. So just own your shortcomings, be real, and be a great example.
Yeah, I love that. Live the example. Hey, and like, can't speak for you guys, but that's one of the things I'm working on, right? Like, just being able to admit or own my mistakes, or own when I mess up, because part of that programming that was instilled with me when I was growing up, right? Culturally, firstborn, need to support everything. My word, went, siblings had to listen to me, and then hierarchically in my village, you know, like my family was like one of the top ones. So like I even had like, you know, when I was like 20, I had like 50 and 60-year-old guys calling me big brother, which was like mind blowing for me, right? So there's a lot of things that you have to unpack and own yourself. And part of that for myself that I'm still working on is just to, it's okay to admit when I'm wrong. Yeah. And show that and by showing that to my kids, they can, you know, share when they've made a mistake as well, you know, because I want them to share with me that, hey, I've messed up, you know, really need your support here, rather than holding it in and waiting for when shit hits the fan and trying to fix that, clean that shit off the fan, right? So as we wrap up today, guys, remember that being a dad and a business leader requires, you know, as Shane said, requires constant adaptation and behavioral flexibility and growth as well. So, you know, just like the leaders that we discussed today, you know, and especially when Eric was talking about, you know, the traits that you have, you need to embrace that vulnerability, that authenticity, and the awareness, so that you can develop these key effective communication skills to strengthen not only your business relationships, but also your family relationships. So everything that you learn, don't just keep it as separate, bring it into your daily life so that you can be present, engage, and lead with the strength and compassion that you want. Guys, until next time, DadBods, DadBoss signing out. Yeah. You've been hanging on to that one, Shane.